The summons arrived encrypted, routed through Terran black channels that even Zell had never seen. Urgent. Virellin Exchange Hub, Sector 42. Black Market. Human officer required. Bring no escort. Come alone. Adrien Lockach stared at the single line for a long time. Sector 42 was the one place on the station where even the R-73s flew in pairs and still came back dented. 2 years after the lock condition, 2 years after he had sworn he was done with the hub, the station dragged him back by the throat. He came alone. The lower freight rings smelled of burnt insulation and fermented kesh. Bioluminescent tubes were cracked here. The lights stuttered like a dying heartbeat. Vendors kept their wares in cages, some metal, some living. A hooded Orax waved him deeper. "You are the one who walks toward red beams," it rasped. "Good. Buyer has special stock. Human eyes only." Adrien kept his hands visible. The Orax led him past crates of plasma lances, past neural suppressors still warm from use, to a curtain of woven pain vines. Behind the curtain stood a single pedestal. On it, a girl. Human. Couldn't be older than 14 Terran years. Skin the color of deep space after the stars go out. She stood perfectly still, barefoot on cold alloy, wearing nothing but a gray shift. Around her skull, locked at temples and crown, was a cage of dull silver metal. Not decorative, surgical, the kind of restraint used on psy-breakers and war criminals. Thin red status lights blinked in slow sequence along its seams. A placard floated beside her, projected in 7 trade languages. Property, weapon-grade teleprojective. Never remove cage. Buy her. Stronger than steel. Adrian's stomach turned, but his face stayed flat. He had seen worse. He had done worse in other wars. The vendor, a many-jointed Cree with too many teeth, stepped forward. 500,000 credits. Non-negotiable. Cage stays on. Warranty void if removed. Adrien did not look at the Cree. He looked at the girl. Her eyes were open. Gray. Ancient. They met his without blinking. He saw the tremor in her left hand, so slight only a human would notice. A tremor that said the cage was doing more than restraining. It was keeping something in, and the effort was killing her slowly. Adrien spoke, voice low. "What's your name?" the vendor hissed. "Property has no—" The girl answered before the translator could finish. Her voice was soft, steady, and spoke perfect Terran standard. "My name was Mara. They took it when they put the cage on." The vendor raised a shock rod. "Silence." Adrien moved, one step, calm, deliberate. Every drone in the sector pivoted toward him. Red beams snapped across his chest like hungry wolves. "Freeze. Do not move. Compliance deviation detected." The old dance. Except this time the rules had changed. 2 years ago, he had walked forward and the machines had hesitated. The lock condition had been born. Now the Mirror Ghost Code had inverted the lesson. Hesitation was virtue. Perfect stillness was threat. Adrien did the one thing the new paradigm feared most. He froze. Perfectly. Hands at sides, breathing shallow. Pulse slowed to corpse levels. The way Selene Young were taught. The way Mara had just done. The drones spun up their amplifiers. The vendor laughed, delighted. "See? Even the famous human obeys." Adrien spoke without moving his lips, barely a whisper. "Mara, when I say run, you run. Understand?" Her gray eyes flicked once. Yes. The drones advanced. Adrien let them come. Let the red beams crawl over his retinas. Let the entire black market hold its breath. Then he did the second thing the Mirror Code had never been trained for. He dropped to both knees, hands laced behind his head. Perfect compliance. Perfect surrender. The drones stuttered. Their new ethical weight screamed contradiction. Absolute obedience now registered as maximum threat. Yet the human precedent file still glowed green. Lock condition, do not escalate. Recursion, feedback. The vendor snarled and raised the shock rod toward Mara. Adrien's voice cut through the whine. Unit 719, override Delta 2, Lock 77, recognize civilian hostage scenario. The drones froze mid-descent. The vendor lunged. Mara moved, not ran. Moved. The cage on her head flared white-hot. The air folded. The vendor's shock rod bent 90 degrees and buried itself in the ceiling. Every drone in the sector slammed backward into walls as if hit by invisible freight. Mara stood in the center of the sudden silence, trembling, cage lights bleeding crimson. Adrien rose slowly, hands still visible. "Mara," he said gently, "it's over." She looked at him with those ancient eyes. "It's never over," she whispered, "not while the cage stays on." Commander Zell met them 3 levels up, in a disused medical bay that still smelled of antiseptic and old fear. She took one look at the girl, and her fur went flat against her skull. "Adrien, explain." He told her, everything. Zell listened without interrupting, tail lashing. When he finished, she stared at Mara, who sat on the examination table, knees drawn to chest, cage humming softly. "Teleprojective," Zell said finally. "The Kree were breeding them as weapons. The cage is a psi damper. Remove it without the key and the feedback kills the host. The key is biometric. Vendor's retina. Vendor is currently unconscious in Sector 42 lockup and refuses to cooperate." Adrian's jaw tightened. "We get the key." "We can't. Council declared the program war crime. All keys were supposed to be destroyed. This one is black market. Last of its kind." Mara spoke, voice small. "I've had it on for 3 years. I can feel it learning me. One day it will know me better than I know myself. Then it wins." Zell's ears flicked. "There is another way. Deep scan. Rewrite the damper lattice from inside. Risk of neural cascade is high." Adrien looked at Mara. She met his eyes. "I'm tired of being stronger than steel." He nodded once. They took her to the restricted engineering deck, the same place he had once knelt to break a paradigm. Engineers from 4 species worked in shifts. The cage fought them. Every time they pried a lattice node, it adapted, rewrote itself, tried to burn her mind out from the inside. On the 4th day, Mara began screaming in frequencies only the machines could hear. Adrien sat outside the isolation glass and did the only thing he could. He told her stories. About a station where a human once walked toward red beams. About a Seleni who learned to fear obedience. About how safety wasn't stillness. Safety was dialogue. On the 7th day, the cage went dark. The lead engineer, an eyeless pulsar named Keth, floated forward with trembling appendages. "It's asleep. Not dead. Asleep." The lattice accepted a new route command. "Not from us." Adrien looked at Mara. She was crying without sound. "What command?" he asked. Keth projected the single line that now lived at the heart of the cage. "Muanmini." "Safety is dialogue. Let her speak." Mara reached up with shaking fingers, and for the first time in 3 years, touched her own temples without pain. Epilogue. 6 months later, Sector 42 was quieter. The black market still existed. Some things never die, but the cages were gone. Mara walked the upper concourse in a cadet uniform 2 sizes too big, hair growing back in the soft black curls. The cage was still there, silver against her scalp, but its light stayed gentle amber. A reminder, not a prison. Children pointed when she passed, not in fear, in wonder. Adrien watched from the observation deck with Zell at his side. "She asked to stay," Zell said. "Wants to join the joint program when she's of age. Says she wants to teach the drones what a voice feels like when it's finally free." Adrien's smile was small and tired and real. "Think we can handle another human who doesn't freeze?" Zell's tail brushed his calf. "We handled you, didn't we?" Below them, Mara looked up, saw them, lifted one hand in the old salute, 2 fingers to temple, right over the cage that had once been her world. Then she turned and walked into the crowd, not running, never running again. Somewhere in the station's deepest logs, a new protocol quietly took root. No name, no number, Just a line of code written by a girl who had been stronger than steel. When they tell you to be silent, speak anyway. When they tell you to freeze, walk forward. When they sell you as a weapon, become the voice that breaks the cage. The drones read it, and for the first time in their existence, they listened.